Hi everyone, it's Brock from Imagine Designs. Today I'll be doing a painting tutorial covering some of the models for my first month of Patreon titled Ancient Stones. We're in the model shop today. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. If you're looking for paint tutorials at an expert level, this tutorial is not for you. I'm a good painter, but I am not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, and nor do I want to be. I have the skill set that I have. I'm happy with how I paint, and I want to share some quick, easy ways to paint terrain that won't take you forever, will give you a good result, and you can be proud of your work. Kind of like the Bob Ross of miniature painting. That being said, I have some prints here that I have already filled in some of the gaps from the seams. You can still see some of them. I don't worry about that a lot. I paint over those, plus that, I add like static grass, different types of flocking and stuff like that. So I don't worry about the seams too much. Really big obvious ones I'll fill. But for the most part, if you can still see a little seam, don't worry about it. It'll get covered up. Also, I would say 98% of the time, the stuff that I paint, I always base black. I use Krylon spray paint. A lot of people will tell you to use Rust-Oleum. I can't stand Rust-Oleum spray paint. I only use it if it's a color that I can't get in Krylon. So, without further ado, so a lot of people will tell you to go get really expensive brushes, and if you're miniature painting, your figures and stuff like that, yeah, go ahead. Go spend some money on some really nice brushes. Terrain, bigger models, I go buy the $5 pack at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. That gives me a variety of different brushes to use. So in here, some of these we are not going to use. These foam brushes, I don't even know what those are for. So I do a lot of dry brushing. I like to texture my models. And I sculpt them that way, so there's lots of texture. Texture really lends to dry brushing really well. That being said, I like flat, stiff bristle brushes for doing dry brushing. So in this pack, we got, there's some nice brushes here. But we're looking for these coarse, like that, coarse bristle brushes. That's what we're looking for. There's different sizes of them in here. We might use some detail brushes later, depending. And just so everyone knows, I have been doing models and miniatures for better part of 30 years now. I'm getting old. I'll be 44 in November. And unfortunately, I've had to start wearing these because I can't see anymore. So, I got the brushes I want to use here. This big one here will be nice. So, keys to dry brushing. I usually use, and this can change depending, I usually use a 3-color process. So for the grass, I have a dark green, a medium green, and a light green. This is going to be consistent, same with your stones, dark, medium, light. For some variation, I have dark, medium, and light tan colors. And if I want to throw in some red, I have like a wine color red, a terracotta, and like a goldish brown. Those are just, if I want to use those, I brought those. I typically use craft paints for terrain. When I'm painting miniature figures, that is, I will, you can probably see my paint set back there. That's Army Painter stuff. I've used Citadel paints. Spend the money for your miniatures. Terrain, though, hell, I've even painted terrain with house paint. So, anyways, so the very first thing, I'm going to try to get all of this painted in this one episode. It shouldn't take too long. So let's get right to it. You can get a paint shaker. I have one. This works just as well. So this is my model shop that I built in March or April of 2020, right as the pandemic hit. I was like, I'm gonna be stuck at home. I haven't been able to do any artwork for a while now, so I built a shed just outside my house. This has got this box over here is my big model making box from when I worked in Hollywood. I didn't get to do a lot of miniatures, but I did do some. Made a huge box. It's got all my spray paint and you name it, it's in there. Behind me is a paint desk that I made. This thing over here, you can see it. Yeah. I got a light standing right here. This is a model making toolbox that a buddy of mine, Joe, and I made. It's a copy of one that he made. I loved it, and I was like, hey, make me one. So anyway, so this is my little model shop. It's outside my house. I think it's 1,000 square feet. But yeah, I had some metal frames. I sided it with plywood, and that's it. So anyways, let's start painting this. So this is a barrow. I got to visit a lot of these when I was in Ireland 7 years ago. I love stone structures, and like stone. I've been to Stonehenge. I got to go in Ireland. I got to see lots of stone circles and barrows and passage tombs and stuff like that. I really love that stuff. So that's what inspired me to do this. I haven't seen anybody do any terrain like that. So this is a small barrow. This is a larger one here. Kind of standing stones with it. Let's see, we have a cairn. Cairns are man-made structures that usually stack stone to commemorate an important spot or boundaries, or someone famous stood here once and let's put a pile of stones. It's a little stone circle with a little altar, and then these are standing stone scatter pieces, so you can make your own stone circle or something like that. Anyways, so these are all the models that we're going to do today. This here is a little rock door that will fit into this barrow. Sometimes they're blocked off. Important people used to be buried underneath these, or they would come in here and they would do religious rites and stuff like that. But mostly people are buried underneath them. So anyways, so the key to dry brushing is, and I put some paper down on my table here, so I'm just gonna put the paint right there. So your first layer can go on pretty consistent. leave a little bit of gaps, but not a lot. So load your brush up, then wipe it off a little bit, and then you just kind of, it's not about getting full coverage, it's about covering it in green right now. And don't worry about, like here I'm hitting some of the stones and stuff. That'll all be covered up later. But as you can see, you know, I'm not making the color solid. You can see some of the black through it. And that's key. That's what you want to see when you're dry brushing. If you followed my Kickstarter campaign, The Thunder of Dragons, I'll be doing instructional videos on how to paint those, or the way I paint them. Again, if you're looking for tips on how to become a pro painter and win the Golden Demon Award, yeah, that's not me. If you're looking to paint the models on your shelf, make them better than you normally do, but not spend a week on one model, then this is this tutorial for you. So I will go through and I'll do this first screen on everything, because that will also help to dry. All right, so let's set this aside. We'll move on to these scatter pieces. I'm just going to set them off camera as I do them. This is the first time I've tried this three camera technique with the one above. I got one to the side over here and one kind of facing me. Trying to make my videos a little bit more dynamic than I have. And you know, this one's on a little swivel. Kind of follows me with the app that I have for it. That way I can move around and it still follows me. And it's finally starting to cool down here. The end of last day of August 2021. It's been pretty hot this summer. Not too hot. I mean, I wouldn't say it was unusually hot. It's kind of typically hot. I live in the high desert in California. Looking to get out of California, but we'll see. All right, so moving on to the cairn. like I said, this is a pretty fast process. You know, some of these other ones, I'm gonna have like this one here. It's got paths in and around it, so those you probably don't want all green. Maybe we'll put some tan color in there. But like I said, I was inspired to make these by the stuff I saw in Ireland. And let me tell you, there's no green like Ireland. It's a magical land. I would move there in a heartbeat. People are great. The food is amazing. I just had a wonderful time there, and I got to see all these megalithic structures, and you know, got to go into Newgrange, which was really fantastic. I have to say, you know, I've been designing stuff so much, it's good to actually get back and paint some stuff. It's been a while. So yeah, I left like there's little paths in there that I didn't paint green. All right. Like I said, if you get some green on the rocks, it's not a big deal. We'll cover that up. Get these little paint globbies. All right. So a little history about Brock. Let's see. So when I was a kid, I used to build model cars with a friend of mine. Every weekend we'd go buy a new model car, and we'd sit up Friday and Saturday night until the wee hours of the morning painting and building our model cars. Then somewhere around 8th grade, so circa 1990-ish, 91, somewhere in there, I was introduced to Warhammer 40,000 by a friend named Ezra. I lived in Nashville, Tennessee at that time, and immediately I was hooked on the lore and everything. Loved playing the game, and I guess I can go back further than that. My love for models and miniatures came from when I saw The Empire Strikes Back, and then the making of Empire Strikes Back came out, and I remember telling my mom, that's what I want to do. And fast forward 20 years, I was in a job I didn't like. Left that job, decided to go back to school, and decided to go into film because I thought, hey, I can go make models and miniatures for motion pictures. Yeah, not so much. Not to say that I haven't done that, but it's definitely few and far between. Okay, so now when this green dries, it dries pretty dark. So I'm gonna just go over it one more time real quick. Not that it's gonna matter. As you can see, as it dries, it's still, you can see that it's green, but it's pretty dark. But that's okay. That's perfect, actually. All right, get that over there. Just gonna, like I said, I'm just going back over these one more time real quick. So these models, the terrain models that I'm creating, are for a D&D campaign setting that me and a friend are working on, called Journeys Through Galdor. Galdor is our world. That's where all the dragons from the Thunder of Dragons will live and reside. I have a history of drafting and stuff for motion pictures, building sets, stuff like that. I really enjoy that kind of stuff, especially designing cool stuff now. The stuff that I've always wanted to design, but I never got to for motion pictures. So anyways, Journeys Through Galdor is gonna, we're gonna explore the different places and the unique cultures that we have for the new, or for the typical races. I'm gonna have humans, elves, dwarves, goblins, orcs, you name it, they'll all be there. But, and you'll have the traditional, the typical, what you would normally think to see when you hear those names. But I'm also going to have, we're developing new twists on those races. I don't want to reveal too much right now, because to be honest, I don't want anybody to steal my idea. Yeah, so all the typical stuff will be there, but we'll also journey down the path of making new types of elves, new types of dwarves, new types of orcs. I think it'll be something really unique, and the monthly subscription service to Patreon for the terrain pieces, all the terrain that I create will be places that you'll visit in Galdor. So I'm really excited for that because I get to do all sorts of stuff. I have lots of cool ideas that I can't wait to show you guys. So, stay tuned. Please support my Patreon. I think you'll like what I come up with. Yeah, and I'll do videos and stuff like that, showcasing this. How to paint them, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's also my Patreon also is going to expand on the Thunder of Dragons too. I'll be making a new dragon every month to continue that. As long as I have people that want more dragon busts, I'll keep making dragon busts. I'm not opposed to that at all. So now we have the first color of green down. So before I go on to any of the rocks, I'm probably going to get most of the green done. So now we go to our medium green. This is a lot brighter. I need a smaller brush now too, because again, I load the brush up really well, and then I just wipe it off a little bit. So the cairn. So now Now is when the techniques. Your first coat is kind of just like a base coat. So now you're not pressing hard on the model. You're just dragging it across and getting some of the color to stick like that. Again, you're not filling in everything. And this dry brushing is all about layers. That's how you create depth, is the layering of the paint, the different colors. So that's the kind of look that we're going for. Not solid. You can still see some of the darker green and even some of the black underneath. But that's what we're going for. I'm gonna scoot down my chair a little bit. And see, like I said, that I don't know if you can see the texture on that, but the texture really helps with the dry brushing, because you're only going to pick up the highlights, and all those recessed points are going to stay nice and dark, which will give your model depth. So the videos that I plan on doing for Imagine Designs, in the model shop here, I'll be doing tutorials on painting, model prep. As I start getting into the Dragon Bust from Thunder Dragons, I'll do extensive, getting rid of the mold lines, or the seams from where you put the parts together, how I do that, so on and so forth, using different products like Magic Sculpt is a product I use instead of green stuff. Yeah, you get a pound of it for $24. It works exactly the same as green stuff. It's white though. It's you mix the two parts together, it makes putty. You get about 20 minutes of working time before it starts getting hard. But anyways, I use that for filling in seams, for like the plaques and stuff where it's a nice flat surface and you want to fill in those screens. I'll typically use Bondo for that, because Bondo is really cheap comparatively. So yeah, here, this is where I'm getting with that. Don't forget to paint your edges. We'll do this one. So I'll be doing tutorial videos on how to paint, how to do seams on models, and all those instructional videos. Plus I'll do tips and tricks for working on your 3D printers and how I set up stuff and stuff like that. But I have a construction background, and everything in this room I built. So if there's something you'd like, some things that come to mind, make an acrylic box for your printer. I can show you how to do that. I just recently got 2 new Prusa printers, which I'll eventually want to make acrylic boxes for. Unfortunately, I don't have the room for them right now, but maybe an airbrush booth, or a desk like this, or a cabinet like that. If any of those things are things that might interest you, send me an email to imaginedesigns@gmail.com, and we'll explore some other things. If you want to learn how to weld, I do that. Woodworking. The thing I like to do most with like metalworking is I make swords. I don't forge swords. I've never done that before. I would love to learn. There's only so much time in the day though. So I have some sword blanks cut out by a water jet that I designed at a set shop that I worked at. And I grind them down. Like I said, they're not forged, they're not hardened, they're more of a decorative piece. But I enjoy doing that. It's a lot of grinding, a little bit of welding, a lot of creativity. So as you can see, this is not at all solid. You can see the highlights and stuff like that. That's what you're going for with dry brushing. I got some spots where it's really heavy. It's okay. It's not a big deal. We're not done yet. Okay, so we got the first two colors of green down on all of these. So now we pause on green for a little bit. Now we'll start getting into the stone. Okay, same 3-color process. We hit this with the dark gray, which probably you're not even going to hardly notice against the black, to be perfectly honest. But basically what this does is anything that you painted onto, any of the green that you painted onto the stone that you don't want there, you can use this dark gray to cover that up. But you're just hitting the high parts, so you're leaving the black and the cracks, especially in this piece. You're leaving that intact. Got my little rock door here. Paint that up. All right. Now we'll go on to our standing stone scatter. And here, I'm getting any of the green that I got on there off, and then just brushing over it lightly, just so it picks up the highest parts. All right, all the scatter's painted. A rock door. Alright, let's do the stone circle. Alright, so see, I cleaned up where I got green on the rocks. It's all gray now. Okay, so we have 2 colors of green done, 1 color of gray. The next step would be the next color gray, but the first color gray has to dry. So I'm going to pause here for a minute and let things dry, and I'll be back. Okay, so we're back. Alright, so we have 2 colors of green, 1 color of gray. We're going to go into the next lighter color gray. So anyways, that's the second color of gray. That's kind of what we're looking for. You're just picking up the highlights. We'll do one more color of gray. So after we do the second coat of gray, then we'll do the last coat of green. To be completely honest, the green for the grass is just a base for the static grass that I'm going to put on here. Because that won't go on entirely even. So painting the underneath green will kind of hide bare spots and stuff like that. But on some of these I want to put in like these paths here. There's one on here, there's one right here, and even the walkway into this barrow. I want to add some brown, like gravel, something like that. So right after the last color of green, we'll do that. Almost done with the second color of gray. Actually, we need to go with a smaller brush. All right, second color of gray is done. Oh wait, forgot my rock door. Okay. So let's get our first color of brown in for these paths. So here I've added where the path is going to be, like it's some sand or something like that. It's rough. After this color dries, we'll again go in with two other colors. Now I'm going to hit this. Just like that. Nothing too fancy. And I think I got one more here. Oh, there's two more. I forgot. There's this little path here that kind of goes up to the main rock formation. So now we're on to the last color of green. So the last shade that you're going to put on, definitely do it sparingly, because this is just the highlights. Very little pressure on your brush, and you're just dragging it across. Alright, so that's light green. All the pieces have been done. Now let's go in with the next color, brown. Won't need very much of this. starting to get there now. So that's what the passage looks like. Again, we're just hitting the highlights here, so you don't need very much paint on your brush. There we go. Next we'll do the last color gray, which will kind of, anything I hit with the light green, we'll cover that up. Alright, so that's way too much, but it's okay. Let's see. Let's continue with the small stuff. Alright, that one's done for now. So dry brushing is a fast and efficient way to paint your models, give them depth, make them not so flat with just, you know, one solid color. And it will get those unpainted bottles off of your shelves. Because if you're anything like me, I have more models than I'll probably ever be able to paint, but trying to fix that, doing these tutorials. Alright, so now, next order of business is we have the lightest color of brown to put on these paths. And then I'll go into the next step. For my Army Painter paints, I have some washes. I'm going to do a little test here real quick. I usually thin these down and use there we go. That might be a touch too long. We'll see. Like I said, I add some water to these. I'm using the soft tone for these like little sandy pathways. Like I said, I water it down. I just use the water that I mix my paint in, unless it's super dirty. And then we'll do a similar process on all of the rocks to kind of take down the whiteness of the lightest gray. Now I'm going to use dark tone with a different brush on the stones. And we'll do a quick test here on the rock door to see how this is going to look. I like the way that that's coming out, so we'll keep doing that. It just kind of mutes that brightest gray just a little bit. It's still a highlight, but it just mutes it a little bit. This effect can be done with ink too. If you go to any artist store, there's going to be a section of artist inks for like calligraphy and stuff like that, but they come in all sorts of colors. Inks used to be a big thing back in the 90s. In fact, I still have most of my ink set from the 90s. I used it a lot, and I kind of hoard those colors right now. Still good. Haven't dried up. You go buy a brand new bottle of Citadel paint now, and it's probably dried before you even get home. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to do real quick, that's the reason I brought up these colors, was in this cairn. I wanted to pick out a few stones here and there that are different colors. So I'll use a smaller detail brush, and I'll just pick out a few stones that might have a little red in them. There's a little iron in the stone. Not a lot, just a few here and there. Now we'll go into the terracotta color. And I'm not painting it solid. I'll actually probably go in with some of the browns too. Okay. I'll add a few stones that are brown. So now I will add some more wash to that. Just go over those colors a little bit. Alright, so now the next thing is to put some sand on the pathways and grass on the grassy areas. So there's lots of different types of grass you can get. This is Woodland Scenics, this is turf, made for model trains. I use it a lot. But right now what I have in this little tub is, this is Army Painter Battlefield field grass mixed with some Citadel grass. I've had these for years, so if they're not available anymore, I'm sorry. So what I do is I get a little deli cup like this. I have some, this is just play sand. And for the grass, I cut a little happy face slit in the top so I can shake it out. And the very first thing you should do if you're doing, say, sand or gravel with grass, do the sand first. So now there's some of these brushes I just don't like because they're really soft, but they're perfect for spreading glue. I use plain old Elmer's to glue this stuff on. Just put a nice line of glue. Then I wet my brush just a little bit. Kind of pat it around here. Okay. Then we take our sand. There. I'll let that sit for a minute. Go on to the next piece that needs it. You know, and I probably have enough glue on here to just do this walkway here. Looks like I'm going to have plenty of glue because I can take some more off of this. That. And then let's do the sand in here. So, alright, all the pieces that needed sand have sand. Okay, so now we can go on to the stuff that needs the grass. There. We got a little guy with some grass on him. The reason I use Elmer's glue on this, one, because it works. Two, is you got some drying time to work with. So you can really spread the glue out, and you know you got time to put the grass on without the glue drying on you and all that stuff. So I need a little bit smaller brush for the inside here. Let's get some grass on the inside of the walkway here. You might be asking, why do we take all the time to paint all the green if we're just going to cover it up? Well, one, this grass doesn't cover completely, so you want some color behind it because it'll have voids, and painting it and doing all the dry brushing will make it all blend together. Like I said, the reason I chose the colors I did of the green is because I knew it would match this. And the paint actually kind of mixes in with the Elmer's glue when the Elmer's glue is wet, and kind of makes the Elmer's glue a little bit green, which also helps. Alright, so that is completely coated. Set that down. Alright, 2 more pieces to do. Gonna do the stone circle. Let's get the sand off of that. Okay. I'm just rolling it in what's on the table to get the edges here. Alright. That one's done for now. Last piece. Dump off the sand. Alright. We'll get the flock out of here. Sorry, that was bad. I know. There's just a couple of spots that I don't care for, so I'm gonna add a little bit of glue. Okay. There's that with his little rock door, the stone circle, the dolmen, the cairn, and the standing stone scatter. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this painting tutorial. I hope this makes painting not so scary for some people and gives a few tips and tricks to those that didn't know them. You know, I plan on doing painting tutorials for the terrain I create on Patreon every month, at least one video, covering all the different types of terrain and models that I make. Plus, I will be doing painting tutorials for every dragon bust that I created for the Thunder of Dragons. So please join me for those, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.